Now, if you've been a fan of films for a while, you have undoubtedly heard the term B-movie used before. The true definition of this term has changed as its use has evolved over the years, but during the golden age of Hollywood, the term B-movie would usually refer to the lesser-known, lower-budget film that would most often fill the back end of a double feature. In short, a B-movie can generally be summed up as being of a smaller budget, often built on simplistic and recycled stories with minimal character work and thin, formulaic plotting. These movies frequently sensationalize elements and can at times incorporate exploitation-style themes. Westerns were a huge staple of B-movie cinema during Hollywood's golden age, but as the 50s came around and commercial television began to rise, second-build features began to dwindle at theaters in America. However, though, despite many production companies shifting to television, this was not the end of the B-movie. During the 50s and working into the 60s, really, the genres of horror and science fiction would see a boom in popularity in the B-movie market. From there, B-movie production houses would really lean heavily into martial arts movies as the 70s would come, and despite many B-movie studios closing doors or just being absorbed into larger production companies as the 80s would come, this era would actually see the rise of newer, smaller studios such as Carolco and New World Pictures and Canon Films and others, which resulted in the genre of action seeing a big boom in B-movies. That was just the quick nuts and bolts on what B-movies were for anybody who may have been curious before getting into this video. Personally, growing up, I was a huge fan of action movies. I spent just countless hours as a kid walking the action movie aisles at the video store, and some of my favorites were, in fact, B-movies. These movies usually ran a tight 90 minutes, featured a tough guy, plenty of violence, plenty of one-liners. They often came complete with a gratuitous sex scene or two, and young Anthony ate it up. So today we're diving into 10 B action movies that I still think deliver plenty of entertainment all these years later. This action movie came out in 1991 and starred Ken Wall as an aging star quarterback who gets caught in the middle of a scheme hatched by a group of corrupt cops who intend to use a fake chemical spill to rob luxurious homes of the evacuated citizens in The Taking of Beverly Hills, also starring Matt Frewer, Harley Jean Kozak, and Robert Davi. Now, this movie is like Die Hard, but instead of Bruce Willis, you get a lumbering football player, and instead of Nakatomi Plaza, it's all over Beverly Hills and Rodeo Drive. This movie, I think, gives you all you could want from this genre. The villains plan to rob Beverly Hills by faking a chemical spill, which somehow does work for a while despite being the dumbest crime idea ever, and this movie assumes that the best way to stop this hostage crisis is to throw an aging quarterback at it. I mean, seriously, our hero doesn't just fight bad guys, he's outsmarting them using, of course, sports logic instead of anything remotely normal. So our hero is taking an army of thugs out using shoulder blocks and precision aim throwing and a ridiculous amount of explosions and throwing stars. The Taking of Beverly Hills is just unintentionally humorous, it's goofy, it's over the top, filled with explosive destruction, and Wall never even messes up his immaculate hair. What more do you need? Next up is a solid assassin movie from 1996 starring Dolph Lundgren as a skilled assassin working for a top secret agency that finds his newest mission altered when someone from his past shows up, causing them to suddenly become the mission's prime targets in Silent Trigger, also starring Gina Bellman and Christopher Heyerdahl. This movie does have its flaws, but I think the action is intense and effectively violent to pack a fun punch. I will admit, though, the uneven pacing can often make you feel like you leaned over and sat on the remote and hit the slow motion button because it's all by the book stuff, so it really needs to be a little bit more concise. Dolph Lundgren here plays this sniper. He's got the muscle mass of like 3 or 4 men and the emotional depth of a marble statue. The character count is very small, and for the most part, I do think that the single location of this plot does build some fun spots of tension. I do think Lundgren, though, spends too much time kind of brooding about his past. I mean, so much so he has flashbacks that actually interrupt what could have been a delightfully gratuitous sex scene. His partner spends most of the movie trying to figure out if she should kill him or make out with him, while Dolph kind of walks around looking like he could take down an entire army using his jawline. So, Silent Trigger does not reinvent the wheel by any means, but it does deliver plenty to entertain using all the usual betrayal and angst and sexual tension and hyperviolent gunplay with Dolph Lundgren whispering existential sniper wisdom. Before he was James Bond, Pierce Brosnan would play a bomb expert for the FBI who would be called in to work a case involving seemingly random incidents of spontaneous human combustion that is believed to be linked to an exotic liquid explosive in 1992's Livewire, also starring Lisa Eilbacher and Ron Silver. I've always had a bit more of an appreciation for these movies that are built on comically absurd premises that are actually a little bit clever. Pierce Brosnan defusing bombs is cool, but Livewire, of course, has to take it a step further. What if people became the bombs? That's right. This movie is built around an explosive liquid that turns unlucky victims into human grenades. So if you drink some water, you could be an unwilling bomb in this movie. And the best part is, it treats the premise completely seriously. It's a mix of espionage and explosions and absolute insanity. And I think you will be surprised at how entertained you are by something that really makes no sense. Brosnan is defusing bombs with his sheer Irish charm. He's giving the sex scenes 100% energy and just laying on the melodrama thicker than a winter coat. It's packed with absurd action and explosions and fun stunts and moments where you just have to sit back and admire how the 90s really embraced cinematic nonsense. Also in 1992 would come a fun sci-fi action thriller starring Rutger Hauer as a cop relentless to catch the serial killer that took down his partner, only to realize he's hunting something from another world, and Split Second, also starring Kim Cattrall and Alastair Duncan. You take Blade Runner, you throw in a heavy dash of aliens, and you sprinkle in a little bit of Lethal Weapon buddy cop charm, then you've got Split Second. Rutger Hauer here plays a caffeine-addicted, trench-coat-wearing detective that's hunting a creature that really looks like it escaped from the conceptual designs of Aliens that didn't make the cut. This movie has everything, though. I mean, it's got climate change flooding, giant monster claws, revenge, a detective who just mainlines coffee and cigarettes like a truck driver. It's all silly stuff, but still a blast. London is flooded. People in this movie are getting ripped apart, and Hauer is out there just rocking a trench coat and sunglasses inside like just a hungover detective from a cyberpunk movie. It's just a mashup of different tropes that somehow manages to work for mindless fun, and by the time the final fight happens, you don't even care about the plot or the clunky editing. You just really want more of Hauer barking out sarcastic one-liners and ripping out alien hearts. Moving along, I have a war-themed action drama next up, centering on a group of young prisoners who are sent into Vietnam to rescue the kidnapped daughter of a wealthy businessman in 1995's Soldier Boys with a Z, starring Michael Dudikoff, Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa, and Tyron Turner. Michael Dudikoff leads a team of criminals turned soldiers on a rescue mission that makes zero sense, yet somehow is surprisingly engaging and entertaining. This plot is so unintentionally amusing. It takes 6 criminals, gives them guns, drops them into Vietnam for a rescue mission, and that's it. The comical part is these guys go from inmates to highly skilled commandos in what seems like 24 hours. The movie never really explains why these random delinquents are better at war than trained professionals, but hey, details are never important when enjoying a 90s B-action movie. It's equal parts absurd, hilarious, and proof that in the 90s anyone could be a hero as long as they had that tough guy attitude, a little bit of grit, and a bandana. Now, this movie does get way too self-serious, which does kill the pace in spots, but with the concise runtime, Soldier Boys delivers explosions, one-liners, and Dudikoff looking vaguely disinterested, making it just a textbook 90s B-action movie. Steven Seagal would punch his way into the 90s after the release of his first film in '88, and in this one he would play an IA detective investigating the mob that, after a brutal attack, awakens from a coma after 7 years and sets out for revenge in Hard to Kill, also starring Kelly LeBrock and William Sadler. You know, you gotta love Hard to Kill for just having the moxie to blend soap opera elements with a violent action movie. Steven Seagal spends half of this movie in a coma and still has ample time to rack up an impressive body count. After 7 years in a coma, Seagal awakes with a fantastic stage play beard and through the power of 90s action movie montages is able to get back up into full strength in what feels like just a week by punching wood and doing some mystical breathing and turning himself into a human incense burner. And of course, making love to Kelly LeBrock ain't gonna hurt either. And from here, this movie acts like the coma never really happened. It kind of goes through the motions of a revenge quest filled with bravado, absurdly choreographed Aikido moves, and random philosophical one-liners. The villains here, including the most cartoonishly corrupt politician ever, just really never stand a chance. It's peak Seagal, lots of whispery threats, slow motion Aikido moves, and a ponytail you just want to tug on to see if a Pez is going to pop out. Coming up next from 1993 is a gritty cop thriller about a young cop assigned to a super ultra secret unit of the LAPD that essentially operates like a vigilante death squad to take out criminals. In Extreme Justice, starring Lou Diamond Phillips, Scott Glenn, Yaphet Kotto, and Chelsea Fields. This cop thriller about a secret LAPD unit that enforces justice with the subtlety of a sledgehammer, to me, is a bit of a forgotten gem. I mean, I love these movies where there's these special units that are so extreme, and this one is, they might as well be playing by Mad Max rules. It's sort of like Training Day, but instead of moral dilemmas and consciousness, it's just kind of dudes kicking doors down and blowing stuff up and letting people know how off the reservation they are. Extreme Justice is just one of those pure machismo movies, and I think it holds up great. I mean, Phillips does spend most of the time trying to figure out if police brutality is bad, which, spoiler alert, it is, while Scott Glenn just, I don't know, has that dead-eyed expression of a man who knows a guy like him in a movie like this ain't making it out alive. This movie tries to be a deep exploration of morality, but let's be honest, people come to a movie like this for shootouts, macho banter, and explosions. Glenn and Phillips are great together, and the grittiness in this forgotten little cop thriller still lands with an enjoyable impact. We fast forward to 1998 for this next movie, starring Patrick Swayze as an ex-trucker fresh out of prison for vehicular manslaughter who reluctantly agrees to take a job driving a truck filled with weapons from Atlanta to New Jersey in Black Dog, also starring Randy Travis, Meatloaf, and Charles S. Dutton. Now, this movie certainly does have its issues. You could probably say that about every movie on this list, but Black Dog's always been a Swayze favorite of mine. He's that cool ex-trucker here who just wants to live his life, but of course gets roped into smuggling illegal guns, but that would be too simple for an action movie, of course, so he's also being chased by the FBI, the ATF, mobsters, and Meatloaf. Yes, Meatloaf, the singer, who shows up as the villain, which is honestly one of the best things about this movie, but even all that would not be enough for a 90s B-action movie, because this movie throws in a trucker legend about the Black Dog, this ghostly figure that appears in the road when drivers are on the verge of madness, which somehow is not the weirdest part of this film, but it's a treat anyways. I mean, Swayze is really too good for this movie. He's handling everything with calm cowboy wisdom, and while the bad guys explode every time their car so much as grazes a curb, Black Dog is like an homage to the 70s chase movie. It's like a Smokey and the Bandit movie meets Mad Max, and with Swayze in the center of it, I think it's fantastic. We're stepping back to 1991 for a movie I would consider to be the Citizen Kane of B-action movies. This one stars Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee as cops who will work together to bring down the Yakuza in Showdown in Little Tokyo, also starring Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa and Tia Carrere. You know, I'm not sure what it is, but there's something about this movie I have always loved. Showdown in Little Tokyo is like 55% action, 40% tattoos, and 5% dialogue, and it just works. I mean, the chemistry between Lee and Lundgren is just buddy cop gold. Lundgren is the stoic giant with a full set of vanity muscles. Lee is the sharp, wisecracking sidekick. The by-the-numbers plot here is just perfect for connecting all the violent mayhem, the amusing feats of human strength and just the generic character work. I think Showdown in Little Tokyo is a movie that knows exactly what it is and just leans into the absurdity 1000%. It's filled with loads of over choreographed martial arts, just neon soaked action, a shirtless Dolph Lundgren wielding dual katanas. He's practicing in his home dojo and just sharing a soak with Tia Carrere. I think Tagawa is just the chef's kiss of movie villains here, and the scoring is perfect for inflating the just comically serious atmosphere of this movie that somehow manages to thrive because of all of its flaws. Next up is a comical little thriller from 1993. This one's probably more of a horror than it is an action movie, and I just wanted to add it anyways. It centers on a genetically engineered dog that is taken home by a reporter who has no idea she brought home a killing machine. In Man's Best Friend, starring Ali Sheedy, Lance Henriksen, and a giant Tibetan Mastiff called Max. What if Cujo was part Terminator? That's pretty much what Man's Best Friend is, a silly little movie where a genetically modified superdog goes on a murder spree. This dog climbs trees like a jaguar, pisses acid, and I'm not making this up, has a built-in cloaking device like the Predator. I mean, Ali Sheedy and Lance Henriksen, bless their hearts, they try their best, but the humans in this movie are so bad at decision-making that you sort of end up rooting for the dog not too long into the film, who at one point eats a cat whole like a python in just a comically absurd scene. This movie from the ground up is ridiculous, but you just have to admire the commitment here to making a killer dog movie with some gusto. There's plenty of amusing kills as this dog goes on the warpath. He even has time to hump the neighbor's collie, so this movie can end on a sequel tease that sadly never happened. I think we can all agree cinema lost a true franchise that day. And that's it for today, guys. That wraps up this video covering some of my favorite B action movies from the 90s. Let me know if you guys all enjoyed this video. I could easily do many more of these and turn this into a little series. If you guys would like to see more, just let me know down in the comments. There are so many B action movies from the era that I still enjoy today, so it would be fun putting that series together. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I greatly appreciate you all. Be on the lookout for my next video coming very soon, and until then, movies never say die.
This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
You trying to say Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?